Aribowan, Arosha, is my video clear? Aribowan, over other අපේ වැඩසටහන මේ සහභාගී වෙන වැඩ සිටින මහා සංඝරත්නයෙන් අවසරයි. අපේ හිත මිතුරන් ඔබ මේ සහභාගී වෙන අපේ හිත මිතුරන් කවුරුත් අපි බොහෝම සාදරයෙන් පිළිගන්නවා. දහම් සිසිල 18 වෙනි වැඩසටහන බොහෝම කාලයක් තිස්සේ අපි මේක කරගෙන ඇවිල්ලා ඒකට අපිට සහභාගී වෙච්ච ඔබව බොහොම ස්තුතියි. මේ අපේ ඒට ආධාර කරපු සංඝරත්නයටත් අපි බොහෝම කෘතඥ වෙනවා මේ අවස්ථාවේදී. අද දහම් සිසිල වැඩසටහනේ විශාල සුවිශේෂත්වයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ මොකද මේ තමයි ප්‍රථම වතාවටම ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් දේශනයක් පවත්වන්නේ අපේ ආරාධිත ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ. ඊටත් වඩා සුවිශේෂත්වයක් තමයි උන්වහන්සේගේ තියෙන විශේෂම කාරණා ලකුණු ගැන මම පොඩ්ඩක් සඳහන් කළ යුතුයි. අපේ ඒ ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේගේ උන්වහන්සේ මුලින්මම ඉපදුනේ සිංගප්පූරුවේ. එතකොට උන්වහන්සේ ගැන මට විශාල විස්තරයක් කියන්න තියෙනවා. නමුත් පුළුවන් තරම් මම කෙටියෙන් ඒක කියන්න බලන්නම්. ඒක බොහොම අපූර්ව විස්තරයක්. අහන අපි කාටත් බොහොම පුදුම හිතෙනවා. උන්වහන්සේගේ නම Rev Dr. Sir Sumana Siri. එතකොට මේ අපිට බැලුවාම පේනවා මේ සර් කියන නම්බු නාමය උන්වහන්සේට ලැබිලා තියෙන්නේ මැලයාසියානු රජයෙන්. ඒක නම්බු නාමයක්. දතෝ කියන ඒ භාෂාවෙන් කියන නම්බු නාමය. ඒක තේරුම සර් කියන එක. ඒ නම්බු නාමය උන්වහන්සේට ලැබිලා තියෙන්නේ මේ මුළු ලෝකෙටම ඒ මැලයාසියාවෙන් ඉඳගෙන ඒ කරපු සේවය ගැන තමයි ඒ නම්බු නාමය ලැබිලා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මම සුළු කාල වේලාවක් ගන්නම්. මොකද මේ බොහොම අපූර්ව මේ චරිතයක් මේක. උන්වහන්සේ ඉපදුනේ සිංගප්පූරුවේ 1952. එතකොට සිංගප්පූරුවේ ප්‍රථම අධ්‍යාපනය ලැබලා ඒ උන්වහන්සේ තමයි ඒ අවුරුදු 50කට කලින් පළවෙනිම සාමණේර මහාන වීමට මහාන භාවයට පත්වෙච්ච සාමණේර මහන්සි කෙනෙක් වුණු පළවෙනිම අවස්ථාව සිංගප්පූරු ඉතිහාසයේ මේ උන්වහන්සේ තමයි ඉස්සලම් මහාන වුණේ. එතකොට ඒක අවසානයේදී උන්වහන්සේ කෙලින්ම ආවා ලංකාවට. ලංකාවේ ඇවිල්ලා මූලික අධ්‍යාපනය, ඒ කියන්නේ සංඝයා වහන්සේ කෙනෙක් ලබන මූලික අධ්‍යාපනය පාලි, සංස්කෘත, සිංහල, ත්‍රිපිටක ධර්මය, ඒ පාරමේ ඔරියන්ටල් ස්ටඩීස් මේ පෙරදිග මේ අධ්‍යාපනය ඒ පණ්ඩිත විභාගවලට උන්වහන්සේ ඒ අධ්‍යාපනය ලැබුවා ලංකාවෙන්. ඒ කොහෙද අධ්‍යාපනය ලැබුවේ? විද්‍යාලංකාර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ. එහෙදී උන්වහන්සේ මූලික උපාධි ලබා ගත්තා. ඊට අවසානයේදී කැලණි විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයෙන් උන්වහන්සේගේ මේ භාෂා ගැන මට මේ දැන් සභාව වෙන්න පොඩි කියන්න පුළුවන් විශේෂ කාරණයක් තමයි උන්වහන්සේගේ හැකියාවන් කියන්නේ භාෂාවන් මම කියලා තියෙනවා 16ක් කියලා. මම හිතනවා මගේ ගාන හරි කියලා. බොහෝම භාෂා කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ කෙනෙක්. ඒක හේතුව තමයි උන්වහන්සේට පුළුවන් රටරටල් වලට ගිහිල්ලා ඒ භාෂාවෙන් ඒ අයට ධර්මය කියලා දෙන්න මේ හැකියාවක් ලැබෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ ලංකාවේදී ජර්මන් භාෂාව ගැන සර්ටිෆිකේට් ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මේ ලබා ගත්ත උන්වහන්සේගේ සර්ටිෆිකේට් එක. ඒ පාර උන්වහන්සේ එංගලන්තයට ඇවිල්ලා අවුරුදු 3ක මේ නීතිය පිළිබඳව මම හිතන්නේ ඒකෙන් තමයි උන්වහන්සේට මේ අර මේ අද ටොපික් එකේ අද මාතෘකාවේ තියෙන මේ එක සම්බන්ධතාවයකුත් තියෙනවා කියලා මට හිතෙනවා. මේ උන්වහන්සේ බොහොම විවිධත්වයක් තියෙනවා මේ ඉගෙනීම ගැන. ඒ කියන්නේ සෑම බොහොම මේ දේවල් ගැන උන්වහන්සේගේ qualifications සමා වෙන්න මේ අරගෙන තියෙනවා. එතකොට හෝමියෝපති කියන මේ අංශේනුත් උන්වහන්සේට ලොකු qualification එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ඇරෙන්න උන්වහන්සේගේ විශාල බොහෝම වැදගත්කමක් තියෙන්නේ ඔක්ස්ෆර්ඩ් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ඩොක්ටරේට් එක තියෝලොජි. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉතින් මේ ආගම් සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඩොක්ටරේට් එක හම්බුලා තියෙනවා. උන්වහන්සේ ඩොක්ටරේට්ස් 3ක් විතර තියෙනවා. මොකද මේ ඇමරිකාවෙනුත් හෝමියෝපති නැචුරෝපති කියන අංශයෙන් සම්මාන ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා. මේ අනිත් උන්වහන්සේගේ මේ තියෙන ඔක්කොම මේ qualifications කියන ගියොත් නම් අපිට මේ ධර්මය අහන්න හම්බ බණක් මේ ටෝක් එක අහන්න හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මම වෙන සුළු විශේෂත්වයක් තව කියන්නම්. කරපු දේවල් වලින් චීනයේ තියෙන විශාල මේ චීන මේ සමාවෙන්න මේකද ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කියන්නේ Great Wall of China 7 කිලෝමීටර් 6000ක් උන්වහන්සේ පයින් වැඩලා තියෙනවා මාස 9ක් ගත කළා. ඉතින් ඒක මම හිතනවා ඒ වගේ දෙයක් කරන කෙනෙක් ගැන බොහොම මේ ප්‍රශංසාවක් ලැබෙනවා. ඒ වගේම රටවල් 63කට ගිහිල්ලා දේශනා පවත්වලා තියෙනවා. විශේෂත්වයක් වුණේ මේ ළඟදී උන්වහන්සේ වැඩියා පාකිස්තානයට. ඒ රටේ මේ ඉම්රාන් ખાන් ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ විශේෂ ඇමති කෙනෙක්ගේ ආරාධනයක් ඇතුව ඒ රටේ බුද්ධාගම පතුරවන්න මේ බෞද්ධ ධර්මය ගැන කතා කරන්න ප්‍රථම බෞද්ධ මේ භික්ෂුන් වහන්සේ කෙනෙක් මේ මූලික අවස්ථාවයි. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ සුවිශේෂී දේවල් බොහෝමයක් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේවා හින්දා තමයි උන්වහන්සේට මේ වගේ නම්බුනාම ගරුනාම හම්බ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. බොහෝම රටවල් වලින් මලයාසියාවෙන් දතෝ කියන නම්බුනාමයයි, එතනින් ගියාම ඇමරිකාවෙන් Ambassador of Peace from the World Federation of Peace, එතනින් ගියාම මේ එංගලන්තේ Who's Who කියන ඩයිරෙක්ටරි එක අරගෙන බැලුවොත් උන්වහන්සේගේ නම තියෙනවා. හොඳයි, මම හිතනවා දැන් ඇති කියලා ඒක අවසානයක් අර මේක අපිට ඉවර කරන්න හම්බෙන්නේ. හොඳමයි, මම එහෙමනම් අපිට අද දේශනය පටන් ගන්නට කලින් අපේ සමිත ස්වාමීන්වහන්සේට ආරාධනා කළ ගෞරවපූර්වක ආරාධනා කරනවා ඒ වැඩසටහන පටන් ගන්න කියලා. හොඳයි හම්දුනේ.
Peruwan Saranai සියලු දෙනාටම with the special permission of our most venerable sirs, dear devout friends in the Dhamma, today as usual we are attending to the Daham Sisila program. Today is the 18th program and it has given a very special environment to invite a very special guest speaker today to deliver a special talk. As our Dr. Ajit Mahathya mentioned about the speciality of the speaker and also our programs, I would not take much time. I would like to welcome our most venerable Reverend Dr. Sir Sumana Siri Nayaka Thera. He was born in Malaysia and brought up both in Malaysia and Singapore. He is the first monk to become in Singapore. After the ordination, he gave a 1-hour talk at the age of 11 in English. He started his Buddhist studies at the age of 8 and then went to Sri Lanka in a very special, highly reputed Buddhist center in Maharagama. He got his basic training and went into University of California and also went into different universities, London, Oxford, even in USA. He has been to 5 universities. He's been studied in 5 universities. Even went into India over 65 times. So he speaks and understands over 16 languages and is a great speaker, very renowned Buddhist monk. And so therefore we are very grateful about this opportunity. Without further mentioning about the credentials, because you all can search about him and learn more about him, I would take the opportunity to go ahead with this special program, and I would like to welcome him on behalf of Mission Peace Buddhist Vihara for very kindly and humbly accepting our invitation to participate in this special program. Also, I would like to welcome our most venerable D.Th Sumana Pandita, who is been very strong supporter of our Daham Sisila program. From the inception, from the beginning of the program, for over 17 programs he conducted by himself almost, and giving lot of information, very fruitful Dhamma talks so far. So today I would like to be very grateful for him as well, and he's also giving a short reflection in English after the most venerable Dr. Reverend Sumana Siri Hamdro's talk. Our Hamdro will make a short reflection in Sinhala. Now we will observe the 5 precepts first and continue our special talk. Today, as usual, this program's been possible because of our Dayakas. They very enthusiastically attending to these things and also support to uphold the center activities. That is a great blessing. So you already have experienced how important to have a Buddhist center and to keep the Buddhist monks in the community. It's a great blessing. So today program is being sponsored by Mr. Atula Delipitia and Mrs. Tamila together with their 2 children, Liam and also Navindu. Today they would like to invoke the blessings of this special sponsorship to their son, Liam Niven Delipitia, who celebrates his 15th birthday on 15th birthday. Also, they would like to share the blessing with their elder son, Tihan Navindu Denipitia. Also, they would like to invoke the blessings for the beloved mother who is in Sri Lanka of Mr. Atula Denipitia. Also, to share the merits with the departed relatives and friends. You also can sponsor these programs, which we will be continuing on every Sunday evening. I would be asking our most venerable Sri Sumana Hamduro at the end to remember these sponsors and their purposes and transfer the merits, also invoke the blessings. Now, please say Namo Tassa 3 times to observe the 5 precepts.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Pānāti pātā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Pānāti vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Adinādāna vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Adinādāna vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Surāmēraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Surāmēraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadam samādhiyāmi.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu.
Now I invite Rev Dr. Sumana Siri, a Sri Lankan heritage, was born and brought up in Malaysia and Singapore, an exceptional student both at school and university. He has mastered 16 languages, excelling in many fields of expertise. Of international fame and renown, he has been the leading light of establishing Buddhist institutions in a number of countries. Rev Dr. Sumana Siri is the CEO, Global Buddhist Realist Movement, also Chief Sangha Nayaka of UK and Europe. He is a medical consultant, so I would very respectfully invite our Hamduro to start his talk on Buddhist values for social development. Over to you, Bhante. Thank you.
Honorable sisters and brothers in the Dharma, Buddhist values for social development. I'm glad to be here today to deal with this topic in order to refresh the memories that you have, not only on the Buddhist values, but how we can enhance society and create a better world. Buddhism offers a way of life that is refreshingly relevant to our time. Exposed to the sunlight of Buddha's enlightenment, the lotus of the Dhamma has been unfolding itself for over 26 centuries, bringing the message of hope and sanity. Buddhist values are relevant to all time and clime. Customs, manners, and perceptions keep changing, but the facts of human psychology remain valid at all times and all places. Systems of religion and philosophy and political ideologies have been discarded once they reach their limits. With the progressive universality of science, many ways of life have been exposed, showing their bankruptcy, inability to stand scientific scrutiny. A mere changing of institutions cannot solve problems in human activities or in society. To develop a society, we need to see much more further. The Buddha deals with the basic facts of psychological life, which constitute the basis of every form of human activity. The revolution affected by Buddhism therefore assumes a permanent character because it relates to the psychological life of the individual person, rather than to the function of an institution. Buddhist culture is the culture of the individual's mind. The culture of the mind ensures the culture of the body. In this sense, Buddhism is a personal religion which tries to civilize the total life of the individual and the sum total of individuals to whom Buddhism addresses as a society. One can perfect oneself only in the midst of society. If you adjust your relation with society according to the teachings of the Dhamma, then you will be able to see the functions of Buddhism and its values, not otherwise. Because of its values, Buddhism is today a great and powerful spiritual force in the world. But if it can become more useful, then it will be much better. That is only when you cultivate its values. Sunday Dhamma School students, I'm so happy to be with you and others who have benefited from all those teachings. You need to provide a platform to propagate Buddhist values in young minds and hearts. Then you get the background to develop further up to society and the larger world. In such minds and hearts, all discipline is instilled in the physical and vocal actions. Buddhism is a great civilizer. Apart from being a spiritual force, it reforms the individual and society despite setbacks. The dynamism of Buddhism is a realism. Based on the principle of democracy, a Buddhist has the right to make changes and choices. That choices, for example, unity based on equality and understanding. This can mobilize the Buddhist potential for the common good. The supremacy of man or woman, both together as taken here, and his or her ability to grasp reality and realize perfection, the respect to scientific observation and inquiry, the rejection of mere reason, and to realize the truth. These values plead for sanity and moderation in all our actions. The wisdom of the middle path, that is what we call it. My professor, W.S. Karunaratne, who passed away some time back, he says, it can teach individuals to fashion their lives and governments to rule their countries, and for people to reform themselves. The Dhamma lives and it helps, provides society with the most comprehensive philosophy of life, making for beauty and goodness. In fact, the Iranians who were influenced by Buddhist values, when they want to call something beautiful, they say Buddha, which means Buddha, because Buddhism was influenced there. Japanese expensive designer clothes are called kukai. That's a Japanese meditation master. Daihatsu is not just a car. Daihatsu means great Buddha. See how technology has gone into society that it helps the movement of development in different forms. So the Japanese, from fence sitting to swimming to making of cars and cameras like Canon. Canon means Kuan Yin, the goddess of mercy. Kannon in the Japanese language. Transform the transform of technology into the spiritual field and see how it stands to bring that equilibrium, that balance of science and knowledge and human experience. My mentor, Professor Karunaratne, he has mentioned some very interesting things which I want to read to you. Because if I talk on my own also, it would be my words. But I use his words, which are very fluid and interesting to listen. He says, the Buddhist should try to make himself the living embodiment of the Dhamma if you want to have social development. He will be simple in his ways, in food, dress, and habits. He will be in the world without being of it. He will not merely be himself, but he will think of his fellows as well. He will be as aware of his duties and rights as he will be that of those for others' rights as well. He will have common sense in him. He will not feel jealous of the other fellows' ability or wealth or popularity. He will not be an armchair critic offering destructive criticism. He will be a man of action. He will be a thinker. He will combine thought with action. He will fight for the underdog without hunting the rich and the mighty. He will linger among the lowly and be able to mingle with the mighty. This is the balance. He goes on. He will be a good mixture among children, men and women, whatever their station in life or status in state. He will be brave enough to fight against great odds. He will be outspoken when he ought to be, to fight against great difficulties and with his time when he has to do the duty that he wants to perform. He will not lament over the past or scheme for the future. He will study his past in order that he may get the scheme for the future, that he may understand the meaning of the present and look forward to a bright future. Just look and reflect on these few points. You'll see how social development can happen, take place, when the individual changes himself and develops himself. So more social activities from a Buddhist point of view for the sake of development. Buddhist views are made based on spirituality to soothe the world in a universal manner. Hence, it is a spirituality based on psychology, which differs from materialistic psychology, the normal classical psychology. It need not follow classical psychology. A religion without mere belief has a tendency to become a form of humanism. The normal Western humanism differs because it's not based on psychology. So Buddhism is a psychology based on humanism and the mechanics of action and reaction. In essence and form, Buddhism is a humanism that leads to realism. Realism is what really it is as it is, to see it that way, not merely simply what it appears to us. Buddhist humanism, therefore, is unique in its sense, as it is value-based. The morals are accountable, unlike the Western movement. If you may accept a religion, you can reject, you may not accept a religion, but can you reject a value system? If you can, why do you value money? Just a small example. Going further, I need to explain to you the problem between religion and the state, and how today in the Western world, which has become more individualistic, based on capitalism and consumerism, digital-based, machine-centered society, not going back to the roots and misunderstanding the purpose of life and the direction, the destiny that we should go. For instance, in France, religion is kept out of the state. Religion is an indifferent subject, strictly separation of state and religion. Laicite, they call it, a secular society. I don't mean to say that we must have a religious program thoroughly ingrained in a social order, but to make that separation and create confusion in a society is not very good. So religion is not in the school curriculum at all in France. That was a historical problem when the division came between the holy orders of the Vatican and the secular system of the French rulers. Therefore, in that system today, ethical values are not taken seriously. Children are often unable to distinguish between right and wrong, what they ought to do and ought not to do, good and bad, duties, not at all, just rights only. What they think, what they feel becomes more important than what they should think and do. So you see a lot of ungrateful children who just don't care for parents anymore in such societies. When there were Christian societies, I suppose they were much more better. But this doesn't mean that religion is an absolute only. State policies, good governance, ethical policies, moral flavor, all these are needed to come to the wholesome of a proper society. Say for instance, telling lies was one time considered a sin, a bad action. A sin means something you commit which is not good, which can take you to hell in their belief, when it was a Christian society. Today it's a fine art. You can tell any lie and get away by it. Fake news is the norm today. It was not like that in our society, in the world before. I'll give you a small illustration to prove the problem of the division of state and religion. One day, a priest and a communist was going in an aeroplane. This is a real story, not a joke. So the priest was sitting beside this person who is a communist, and he told him, man cannot live by bread alone, which is a well-known biblical statement. And the biblical statement says, man must live by what God says also. But then the communist replied, okay, you said man cannot live by bread alone. Of course, man needs butter and jam to go with the bread. That is the communist opinion, which is materialistically correct and verbally also correct. For those who don't believe God, then how? These are the questions we should arise in our minds. This incident shows not only that you cannot live by the belief in God, but also the wall, the barrier between state and religion, which has drawn the lines to divide ourselves. The world is becoming more secular. My country, Singapore, where I'm brought up, having parents and brothers and sisters there for 5 generations, we maintain economic prosperity and religion in a very equitable way. We can express our religious values as a social need by not overlapping any other religions. It's not just tolerance, but patience as a virtue, and tolerance as something that is controlled by law operates very well. Education is meant for discipline. Education is not the most important way to find bigger capital and become rich. What is the use of riches if we are not disciplined? If we don't believe in a set of values? Values are very important. Education becomes a blessing only when it is value-based. If the ethics and morals are neglected, such education are very doubtful whether they can bring the proper kind of policies and good results that the policy makers, educationists, the religious people, and the world by large aspire. If education is only meant to make money, then you create a lot of greedy people after the positions, after the money. We need an equilibrium in economic prosperity and also in our value system. For one, according to their needs, and for one, according to their belief. The space and time must be given proportionately. In such a world, we can understand that we should not overlap another person's religion and try to champion your own and see the ego as the kind of hard-heartedness and extremism seeping in. To have the balance, to draw the balance, to look at religion from a spiritual point of view rather than religion meant for segregation. Unity in diversion, that multiplicity is a gift of nature. We need to accept this. And when we accept this, we can balance ourselves to the extent that we want a more developed society. Such society cannot decline but only progress. This is what the Buddha would have said if he lives today. Any negativity in social media, even as a statement, is not welcome in Singapore. Immediately the next day, the CID will come and question the person. There's no such thing as the Western aspect of liberty to the extreme. People suffer that in the West. We feel sorry for the West. Because of their freedom movement, they have taken into their countries a lot of elements which are not desirable for the development of their country, nor for the future of the West. Impartially, unbiased reports show us how societies degrades because the social policies of the country is not following a value system. The importance in religion is because it's based on a value system. It tells us to abide by universal kind of injunctions to follow to develop a society. Whether it is Buddhism, Hinduism, or Christianity, or Islam, or any other religion, African religions as well, there are valuable things that you can take and formulate for the development of a society. All religions are not the same. We can be similar, but not the same. Why not? Multiplicity, I repeat, again, is a gift by nature. We are all products of nature. And in that nature we grow, we can develop, we can enhance ourselves in the goodness for a further togetherness in society, which is for the well-being and happiness of each and individual. Let us take another position. The demand for books today is diminishing in Europe. Over-digitalized, people want to live by digitals, simply by computers and by iPhones and the tablets only. You need tablets when you're sick, actually. You go to the doctor. Another word meaning for tablet is what is there in the stone written and put up in the cemeteries. It's very peculiar, the name is given tablet. But interesting, the computer has a mouse. Mouse is a symbol of wisdom in Hinduism. You didn't call it cat, no? Think over some of these fascinating things that can help you to think alternately. Simply don't believe in your preconceived notions. How wonderful. Refer to the free inquiry charter in world history given by the Buddha. Not to simply cling to your thoughts and ideas, but to be like open like the skies. The Buddha says, if the Dhamma is open, it shines. If it is closed, it darkens. From light, we go to bright light. From light, we don't want to go to darkness. From darkness, we go to light, and we don't go backwards. And from light, we go to bright light, and from the bright light, we get enlightened. So this is a progressive way of how to mobilize a society for the furtherance of society and the individual's perfection. Buddhism has a value system which is pragmatic and practical. A project as such of performance. It's a reality that we are interested in. It's not a concept. It is not information technology. By information, you gather concepts. You fix yourself. You become technical, mechanical, digital-based, machine-centered. You're not human-centered. Remember, Buddhism is not theocentric, not based on a god. It's based on the human being, anthropocentric. But if you try to make yourself just machine-centered because of consumerism and over-exposition in yourself, you forget your humanity. Don't forget, the World Health Organization has come out with a result that how electromagnetic fields can cause problems in the brain, tumors and cancers. These are proven. Don't be blind to that fact. We need to accept things as they really are, not as we seem to think or just believe. Let us not be slaves to our feelings. This is one of the things that we find a lot. I feel like that, and then you think that is the truth. Feelings can be very fluid. You cannot take simply feelings as absolute truth. So Buddhism is transformation technology. Today, digital system is information technology. How to change oneself to the better position and get to the heights of development. For an example, it is given in our Buddhist holy book, the Dhammapada. I quote, conquer anger by loving kindness. This you can elaborate. That means instead of hatred and instead of the terrorists, you can have conflict resolution, loving kindness, compassion, and all those positive emotions. Good emotions are good, bad emotions are bad. Conquer hatred with loving kindness. Conquer the bad by doing good, or the bad people do good to them. These are quite common in many religions. Then the Buddha says, conquer the miser, the stingy person, the greedy person, by generosity. He gives an alternative. Don't just remain and watch. Try to find an alternate solution, whether it is in science or technology or in any other form, to come to a better position. And conquer the liar by truth. All this fake news and lies, how the world is being controlled by media barons. They tell us what they want us to know. So mere information can be misinformation or information which has been manipulated. We need to read in between the lines. The same we need to apply to our religious scriptures also. When your mind is open, your eyes really can become open. So the theosophists say there is no religion higher than the truth. Remember, collective hate can be transformed to war. Conflicts and war are all created by human beings, not only the mind. They move. And you may win the war, but the battle remains. A spiritual responsibility must be taken by policy makers. If politicians just leave it like that and never show any interest and let the clergy only to do, they are burdened by a bigger problem. The collaboration of the rulers and the religious masters is a good position to bring the balance, to formulate social policy for good governance. Like for instance, duty for duty's sake, not for political mileage. No ulterior motive in our day-to-day actions, whether you are religious or whether you are political. Being scientific is not necessarily the solution, because there are things beyond science. There are things that science can't see from different dimensions, like the third and fourth and the others. We need to see our inner sensations, but not to become sensitive about it. Beyond science, we may enjoy good devotion, let us say for instance. You can't understand that by scientific means. Or when you make offerings in the religious sense to the monks or nuns together, you can't understand that scientifically. It has a different background to understand. Einstein did say that science without religion and religion without science is useless. For example, science has promoted a lot of disasters like war, sale of weapons and armaments, and also over-consumerism, competition. So what is the result? Violence and silly and useless wars. So confused, complex, and perplexed world order. Loving kindness, love alone is the solution. When you love someone with all your heart, like in your young days, all divisions disappear, isn't it? Just take a look at that act. When the boy and girl is in fully love, they forget all the divisions. They even do a marriage of convenience. Forget the religion for a while. Forget the race for a while. In that, there is a lesson that we can learn. That loving kindness, genuine friendliness can remove national, racial, social, and religious division. Then appears the strong force that cannot be won by hatred. So the strongest force, largest force in the world is actually love, not power. An ideal or real society, therefore, cannot arise as long as we think, feel, and behave like savages. Let's clear up ourselves with spiritual values that lead us to create a perfect society. My last point will be just a sentence to tell you that Buddhism is not an asocial or antisocial society, value system. Sisters and brothers in the Dhamma, I come to the end of my discussion for you, and I wish that you have realized some of the injunctions which I have spelled out, and see that Buddhism is not a mere religion, not a mere belief, but something higher than the normal positive in a very realistic manner, a form of social development. Thank you very much, and Sam.
Thank you very much, our most venerable Dr. Sir Sumana Siri Nayaka, for giving such a wonderful, very informative. There are lots of things there for us to think. So I think our Dr. D.Th is joining to post a few seconds of question and answers. This is a great opportunity for the community, especially the young children, to interact with our very renowned, eminent Buddhist monk here. So you can put your questions forward and ask if you would like to ask any question. While you are waiting, our Dr. D.H.M is waiting. I will ask one question from Bante. Bante, that especially when we come to the young age, we have a very energetic, very enthusiastic kind of mind. We just kind of logically think. How does it stand the values and the faith for our kind of life stability and fulfillment of our aspiration? So where does the faith, you mentioned about Christian culture and Buddhist culture. If I have understood rightly, you said that slightly you see the difference in the Christian culture than the Buddhist culture. Children are more disciplined, more respectful. Would you like to elaborate a little bit of that, please?
I was referring to the Christian culture of the past, not the present moment. Actually, in this country, it's not the case. Anglicanism has gone very down bad. You don't get even 15% people going to churches. But it's not just going to church or temple. How much it has involved in them as individuals to practice the religious values. That is more important. In the case of faith, in Buddhism, faith is called the rational faith. It's not mere belief. The tendency of faith is to make a person blind. Buddhism is not a mere faith. That is why it is not a mere religion. What the Buddha says is, you must have rational faith, logical faith. To marry reason and logic into the faith system is not found anywhere else in any religions as such. Logic is not permitted in many. So the scientific or the higher than science base of Buddhism goes beyond the normal kind of belief. So it is interesting, this beyond science kind of a science of Buddhist philosophy. I hope this is.
Yeah, that's the answer. Bante, would you like to also put some light into the family environment? How would you see as a role model family environment based on morality and discipline? How would the relationship between the parents and children, how would that be a little bit more helpful for a secular or any faith-based family environment?
The first thing, of course, now you have a lot of Sunday schools. So you teach, but you must see that the teaching is just not technical, like sitting for an exam and passing something and repeating what is being taught. You need to re-question, like catechism in Christianity, ask questions and answers. We should never draw back not to ask questions. But simply questioning is not the issue. Ask a proper question, you get a proper answer most probably. You may not sometimes, but the space for inquiry is open in Buddhism. There's no secret dogmas. So make use of that. When you have been given even the freedom to see whether the Buddha is really enlightened, the Buddha said, question it. There's nothing unquestionable that cannot be questioned. No secret doctrines in Buddhism. So parents must take the lead as the first teachers of children. Not only to leave it to the school and the Dhamma masters in the Sunday school, but when they come home, talk to them. The engagement between parents and children. So will make them a more fulfilled and a better understanding and more lovable parents and children. that will lead towards the decades until the decade.
Thank you. Before I pass on to our Dr. Ajit Mahathir, and the final question from me, you know, that we have brought up in temples and we are being given a lot of faith or discipline, whatever we like to call it, and that has given a lot of blessing to us. So what is the difference between this faith or moral practices and what sort of benefits we call blessing as kind of in another term called benefits? What is the benefit of practicing the faith or belief or moral practices?
Yes, it purifies you. It perfects you. Purifies in the sense not just the mind. By practicing the precepts and following the good values, you purify your physical and vocal actions. By further developing, you create the platform to go to develop your mind, your spirit, and your totality as a person. And in that, you can create a lot of social good policies in order to help society. Without the base, the ABC, you cannot have the XYZ. So everything counts. We should never underestimate the value of good faith or rational faith, the value of obedience, not simply to be logical only, but to be consistent and to have the give and take that it's a dual carriage or not a one-way traffic. Parents should not simply command, they should talk friendly. And parents should not obey children. Children should obey parents. Don't think because you're in the West, you just have to ask your son and daughter, shall we go to the temple? Things like that. Parents want to see that they are obedient to children. These are all very, what do you call, very superficial kind of judgments they make, looking at the Western value system, if they have a system of value.
Thank you, Bhante. Ajit Mahathir, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Bhante, for that wonderful talk and questions. So it's available now for anyone to ask questions. I suppose we haven't done it on this scale before. So the first, if you just say your name and then, or even just ask the question, as long as there's not too many people asking at the same time, that'll be fine. So anyone with questions at this stage? What I might do is also similar to Bhante Samita. I do too have a question, and I'm going to ask that question from Dr. Sir Sumana Siri on behalf of our youth group at the Vihara. Bhante, we formed a youth group that is mainly consisting of people who are in the final year at school, people who are at university students, and people who are newly, who have graduated and are in their professions. So all young people. So what I would like to ask on their behalf is, how would you say that what are the aspects of what are the Buddhist values that would help them, these people who are essentially starting their life, what would be the most important things that they as Buddhists should value or are going to help them to formulate their a good life for their future? What Buddhist values should they be focusing on?
I think the first point is to see as the values that the parents tell and question it, that we have a value system. And the second will be to understand by this value system that we can grow and develop ourselves. Without that confidence, simply taking a concept and living in it will be useless. As I said, it is not a concept, It is an action to perform. And when you are in that gradual scheme of going forward and not looking backwards, Buddhism being the way forward, you'll find all the necessary values, which has been spelled out by the Buddha for 45 years. You know, the Buddhist scriptures are 40 times the size of the Bible. It's like the vast ocean. This is the original scriptures only. The first book which you can find, the oldest book, is found in China, Prajna Paramita, the first book which has been printed. So all these values for 2,600 years have been spread all over the globe. Of course, today it has been spread much more. In comparison, for those who are in the United Kingdom, being a smaller community within the Buddhist tradition in this country, you'll be surprised to learn that we have more than 800 Buddhist organizations in this country. And more of them, most of them, are run by our white Buddhists. So young people should look into the position why the Western white friends are interested and keen on Buddhism. In fact, they are studying Buddhism more and practicing seriously. I don't say we have to be very serious about the subject, and engaging themselves much more than our communities. We follow more as a ritual and look at it from an aspect of duty to do and festivals to follow. But there is much more into the teachings of the Dhamma. The value system is very wide. As you go on making evaluations and finding what is good for yourself and for others, why you need to get involved in such evaluation and make yourself better, rather than just living for the purpose of living. Tolerance. To see the values of rational thinking, how Buddhism goes beyond science. These are all very fascinating things. That so much today, scientists, many Jews in the United States have come up with neurotheology, brain science and Buddhism. Very little explored by our own traditional Buddhists. This is just a small example. There's much more to read, see. Go to Holy Island, a 2 miles larger space of island transformed into a Buddhist center in Scotland, in the sea. You can't just believe there's such a thing in the United Kingdom. I think the fact that 800-old Buddhist organization is there in this country functioning is already something that the young inquiring mind should inquire in the first place.
Thank you very much, Bhante. That's a wonderful answer for our young people to think about. Now we, I probably I should have said thought of this, and we of course we have the Zoom chat, group chat, and that's the way to communicate. I'm entirely not a very digital person, as you can see, but we have 2 messages. First from Priya to everyone. Venerable Sir, thank you very much for your insightful Dhamma discourse. That's a comment. And then we also have from Disala Fernando, a very interesting question, Bhante. You touched upon this obviously before, but he asks, how can one discipline themselves in the usage of digital media from the Buddhist perspective?
The first thing would be the answer: do not believe everything you see. Let us take computers. They have all the information, but a computer is not enlightened. They have everything about Nibbana, but the computer cannot become a saint, cannot become enlightened, isn't it? It's just a movement and action. For education to have its entire meaning, is the engagement, the movement, and the sensation and the feelings. It can enhance and bring in that goodness. If they do that, they have a balanced equilibrium of not simply believing in what you simply believe, Do not accept merely because it is similar to your preconceived notion. How great the teachings of the Buddha in the Kalam Sutra. What more scientific inquiry do you need? Don't accept because the master says it, the Buddha says. He himself is a master. Don't accept simply because I say, says the Buddha. And he said, don't accept because he is your guru. Don't accept because it's in the traditional book. To question, but also to doubt that your conclusion is not always right. That is important. Self-criticism is the highest form of criticism. If you are not practicing self-criticism and just cover up all the killings and wars and the bad things and corruptions in your country or of origin, you are not following the truth. So adults have a duty to become truthful in order for the younger people to accept the basic culture. When there is a lot of deception, of course the young mind not prepared to accept all this. These are duties I'm showing to parents how they need to tackle these children. It's important. Be truthful. There is no religion higher than the truth.
Thank you, Bhante, for that wonderful answer. And thank you also to Priya and to Nisala for asking that question. I believe we have another message. And this message actually comes from a lady in Canada, from, well, in fact, Mrs. Rani Vas, who some people would know as my sister-in-law. That was a very interesting and informative talk, Bhante. Living in the Western world where our values of life are based mainly on dollars, what would you suggest for us Buddhists living in this part of the world, how to lead our lives in the light of Buddhism?
Well, that's a very simple question. I've been coming to Canada for the last 30 years, and I preach there, and I understand what the Canadians need. At this point of time, I'm supposed to be in Canada, but because of COVID, I changed for the first time in 30 years not to attend this year. So Canada has benefited a lot from me, I must say, in these last 30 years. And it's a place where multiculturalism is accepted and it's easy, and very less extremism practiced, unless across the border in the States, and unless many other countries, which many other communities, people live in harmony. You are fortunate to live in Canada. My areas of work is mostly contained in Toronto and Greater Toronto, but I also go to Vancouver and other places. So I may meet you the next time I come to Toronto. You can join us, a very interesting Buddhist center which has developed very fast and grown very fast, not only by number, but also by the amount of space and land, like 43 acres. So in Brampton, in Toronto, we have a Buddhist center where we base on that point and go further. I was also in Mississauga for about 10-15 years, where I come for my summer programs. So what I can say is, whether you are in the east or west, the human predicament doesn't change. It remains the same, that all people suffer. And also at the same time, that all people can come out of it. Buddhism is not a negative teaching about suffering. It acknowledges suffering and says, get rid of suffering. Now take, for example, one. The third noble truth is the noble truth of happiness. But technically the translation goes as the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. It doesn't appeal much to the young mind. We must understand in our interpretation to modify the words by implication. Instead of saying cessation of suffering, what is the cessation of suffering? Stopping suffering and becoming happy. So we should translate that as the noble truth of happiness. Buddhism is an happiness agenda, not a teaching of negativity. This puts off many people in the West Then why you're talking all about suffering? Why about the negativity? People like to hear good things, no? So we need to find the approach, but realistically, not simply for superficial means. So even in translation, we must not be technical, we must be practical. After all, the thing is not a concept, but a reality, a movement, a creativity. If you're technical minded, there's no creativity, there's no creative intelligence, there's no new growth. That's the problem. So religion should be looked at from a very creative point of view. This is why the Buddha says, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka, the four sublime living, higher living, are creative livings. They are not just compassion, not just love, not just appreciative joy, not just equanimity, egalitarian, unity in diversity, to accept things as they are. These little values have great meanings. That is why they are called immeasurables. You can't measure their value. You see the value system of Buddhism? The denominators that bring you to the highest happiness is Nibbana. But in the lower level, without going to Nibbana, you can be happy at all levels of life, at any comportment of life. In every move you make, in every breath you take, you must watch yourself.
Thank you, Bhante. I hope that was a sufficient answer for you, Raniaka. And so I would like to ask whether there's anyone. I have not received any more questions on the chat. So if you do have any questions, please ask. Now's the time to ask.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you say who you are, please?
Therwan Saranai. My name is Dr. Ruvini Senasinghe. Thank you very much for that excellent Dhamma Sakaccha, and really enjoying the concepts of Buddhist values. I work here in the UK as a consultant psychiatrist for the last 20 odd years. I just want to ask Reverend Sriratana's views on that. In our setting of psychiatry, we tend to see a lot of Buddhist values being taken, and then they come as CBT, DBT, CAT, mindfulness, meditation, but it is more, comes as therapy. But if you really analyze them, they are all kind of Buddhist values which is being taken. So I would like to hear your views of why that we wait until that Buddhist concepts being taken to that kind of therapy, rather than, where have we not sort of not directly influencing these Buddhist values in our society.
If you draw a line and segregate and look at the subjects and don't relate to yourself as a Buddhist, then you don't see the value of it. If you see only from the technical point, and then you are fixed. But if you see from a Buddhist point of view, a very flexible kind of science of how you relate to all that, then you will see clearly yourself. It's a matter of getting used to simple terms of reason, rationality, verification, observation, and how you conclude those important ingredients, come to the conclusion. You see, like the Four Noble Truths, you take a simple one. The Buddha is like, he says there is a problem. So it's like diagnosing a sick person, and then he gives the prescription. So this is why he calls himself a doctor and a surgeon, not just the mind, but body, speech. The errors that we do can be brought up to a higher level of understanding. In whatever form of thinking or vocation we are, we can apply the good values if you read and practice Buddhism. But technically, if you just look at it, you won't be able to explain even by words. It has to be a life experience. The reason is, scientists like Kuchenberg, who had 22 patents in chemistry, he calls Buddhism, after reading and writing a lot, an empirical science. Normal science is not empirical. It is just what you do, experiments. But here is experiencing the experiment and trying to relate to oneself. Done is what to be done, not like the scientific classical way of saying, this is what we have done so far. Something else can happen next time. The Buddha gave a very conclusive way of understanding the problem and not simply analyzing, going beyond analysis and looking at it from observation and coming to a practical conclusion. Religion and science is not the same. Buddhism is not a mere religion. Buddhism is about the human spirit. It's a great spirituality. So the religious aspects, though the practices are there, are different from many other religions. As I said earlier, we can be similar in the part of ethics and other propensities in religion, but the rationality you find in Buddhism is far more ahead and not found in the normal religions. I'll give you a small example. For instance, Buddhism is considered a science in Russia. This is government information, not mine. And they don't accept Buddhism as a religion. And they allow Buddhism, all the Buddhists, even in communist time, in the Academy of Sciences. So great scientists, they were keeping and watching and reading, and they understood how, say for instance, the atom was described from a Buddhist point of view, and the particles and the aspects of an atom and all that. So the technical wide philosophy and teaching is great like that. I'm just giving a small example.
Another thing I would like to reflect to our Bhante, our Dr. Rumi asked, the secular world, as our Bhante said, over 800 Buddhist groups are working in UK itself. And if you go to America and other countries, it reflects me, Pachattam Veditapo, the wise people has taken the teachings very well. And Buddha delivered these teachings as a generosity. So anybody can take it as a piece of it. Unfortunately, our Buddhist community, what we call Buddhist, seems like not taking much out of it. That is the problem, of course. But there are people who use it in different terms like CBT, MBSR, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. You know, so many terminologies are being formed, and they use it very wisely, very effectively, and of course they make millions of from Buddhism. You know, without saying a single word, no even gratitude for the Lord. You know, so you are very right about it. And there is another mother asking another question. I have 2 sons. What is the best advice I can give them growing up in a very digitally dynamic world? I have 2 sons. What is the best advice I can give them growing up in a very digitally dynamic world?
Oh, that's the one. Yeah? I will answer that. Digital causes cancers and tumors. You cannot deny that. So you take a risk. I feel sorry for your son's brains. I belong to a family that has been victimized by that because my sister was working in the airport. And about 25 years ago, I told her, this can cause brain damage to you. She didn't accept. But it so happened after 3 years. She was communicating with the flights as a worker in Singapore, Changi Airport, and she developed tumors. And she had brain cancer, brain tumor. Luckily not malignant, but benign, but still half of the brain was cut off. I don't know what else you can tell me when I say this. It's electromagnetic field that goes into your brain.
It's very useful, Bante, to reflect on, because a few years ago, mothers used to sing a lot of poems and verses which has values, moral values in it, and taught the children. Now today, they just simply give a mobile phone and please the child and get on their homework. So what would your advice upon it?
Nothing like the hardware reading the original books. All of a sudden, in our evolution, we have been taken this as a marvel thing, and we don't know the brain damages. We wait until the problem comes, then only to realize. Why take a risk when you have all the printed books? And I suppose the education systems in many countries pushing so that teachers don't work much and they are happy that the children are playing with all this. To give to little children, I just can't understand why they don't understand that electromagnetic field that work through their waves can go through the brain and cause tumors and cancers in children. It's already spelled out very clearly by the World Health Organization about 8 or 10 years back. And based on those records, and also as victim of a family that comes from there.
Thank you, Bante, for that excellent answer. And thank you, Dr. Ruvani Singha, for the wonderful questions. We do have one more question, and I think this is quite important. And I believe these are from two very young people, Vidun and Vidunya. So the question goes, I keep on hearing my mother and father say Buddhu Saranai at the end of a call or going away from somewhere. But some people say Devi Pihitai, within brackets, God bless you. As a Buddhist, I prefer Buddhu Saranai. Is this correct? Vidun from Bracknell Dhamma School.
What is good for the Buddhists may not be good for the Christians who are ardent believers if they are. What is good for the Christians may not be good for Buddhists if they are good Buddhists as well. But if you are a friend of Catholic friends, you may wish them, but you don't have to believe a creator God for that. It can be just a wish, a nice word of blessing or peace in your friend. But be true to yourself in what you say. If you don't believe in other things than the Buddha, it would be better for a Buddhist to say Buddha Saranai. As a matter of just greeting somebody, I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
Bante, thank you. And I suppose the question was more to do with Devi Pihitai, as some of our people in Sri Lanka would both use Devi Pihitai and Buddha Saranai. And I think these two young people have heard both of these. And he says he prefers the Buddha Saranai, but what would be the significance of Devi Pihitai as in the Devivaru of related to Buddhism?
Actually, if you are a real Buddhist, you don't believe in any devas as can give you pihita. You understand? When you say Nattime Sarananganya, there is no other refuge than the Buddha, Buddho me Saranang Varan, then you cannot contradict yourself. If you are following just the Buddha and forget all the Devi or Devas or angels or spirits that people pray as Devas, because the Buddhism has mixed up with Hinduism in that, and they go to Devalas. This is not a real Buddhist practice. You contradict yourself. So if you are a real Buddhist, you can't go to Kataragama and ask refuge from him. Buddha is your refuge. Dhamma is your refuge. The Sangha is your refuge. And you cheat yourself. You say, Natti me sarananganya. I have no other refuge. Then you still go. This is because people want to become very ritualistic and blindly follow. You go to Kataragama, you don't go and pray at the Chaitya there, that big Chaitya, just 10 minutes walk from there. So this is the problem. Understanding Buddhism starts from right understanding, and right understanding when you have the right belief. When you have the wrong belief, it's not right understanding.
Thank you, Bhante. There you are, Vidun and Vidunya. I hope that was an excellent answer. So all your total full refuge is the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. When you you don't need anything else, and there are many suttas in the Tripitaka that will explain that to you. We have one more question. Sangeeta and Asanga would like to ask a question from Hamdru.
Sorry, I couldn't hear question.
Hamdru?
We couldn't hear the question. Could you repeat it?
There was, I don't see a question. So it's from Sangeeta and Asanga. I have a quick question for Hamdru. Can you have a mute? Ogolonta puluwan screen at the bottom of the screen, you should be able to unmute. Arosha, I wonder whether you can help. They are on mute. Let me see.
Hamdru nahanam mawa.
Hena.
හාමුදුරනේ මට දැනගන්න ඕනේ කුසල් හා පින් අතර වෙනස මොකක්ද? ඒ කියන්නේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි කියනවා මේ පින් කරන්න කියලා. නමුත් මම අහලා තියෙනවා වෙනසක් තියෙනවා කියලා කුසල පින අතර. ඒකයි අනිත් දේ තමයි හැම වෙලේම අපි දකිනවා මේ අපි කොහොමද අනිත් මිනිස්සුන්ව වෙනස් කරන්න කියලා. නමුත් අපිට පේන්න අපි කොහොමද මොකද අපිට සැහැල්ලුවෙන්ම වෙනස් කරගන්න පුළුවන් අපිව. අපි කොහොමද ඒ කියන්නේ සමාජයක් වෙනස් කරන්නේ එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි කොහොමද තව කෙනෙක් වෙනස් කරන්නේ කියලා. ඇයි ඒ දෙයට හේතුව කියලා දැනගන්න ආසයි.
Okay, I will take the first question. What is the difference between kusala, akusala, and ping and pao? Kusala means you are skillful, you are clever. That's the real meaning. And when you do good things, it is considered good because you are clever and you did it. But if you are stupid and you do it, it's not kusala. Okay, the opposite is akusala. Skillful actions, kusala. Unskillful actions, akusala. That means you have been clever or not clever. Now, ping and pao is a bit different, but the Sri Lankan tradition put all in one basket. That is a problem. Ping is like what you do to go to heaven. And pao is when you do, you go to hell. This is a very simple way of explanation. But if you understand it in the wider perspective, that ping and pao comes from not real Buddhism, from the influence of Hinduism. So those concepts have also come in and become part and parcel of the system. But language shouldn't be a problem. If you understand kusal and akusal, that is good enough for you to be enlightened, to have a development in society, and also to go to Nibbana. I think that will be enough.
Yes, so the second question is about we normally advise other people, but we don't really practice. Even in Sinhala, it says that Oadenu Parahata Tama Sammate Pita Sita, which means before we advise, we should establish in our morals. And what Buddhism is all about being a practical experience, as our Bhante rightly mentioned. It is a practical sense. We need to see the things. And this is very interesting question you asked. You know, we preach even in Sri Lanka a lot of Dhamma talk. If you see, the society hasn't changed much. If you see the Thailand or Burma, which has a different kind of an behavior or the system, we can see that they have absorbed some of the values of Buddhist teaching.
Without much preaching.
Without much preaching. You don't really see in Burma or Thailand that much of preaching. Whereas you see a lot of preaching in Sri Lanka, but we haven't really seen the change of lives. The second aspect, very interesting, this one you mentioned, you know, that many people that what they do is to preach, but they don't really practice. But Buddha mentioned always before you advise or talk about it, this is for your own personal practice, own personal happiness, own personal peace and liberation, which is the most important thing. It is not an individualism or selfishness. It is very important that we personally take a serious concern about to change ourselves, apply those things within. The other aspect which I really wanted to mention here when you asked the question, you know, Daham Rajatuma, he was looking for some teachings and he was compromising with the devil. You know, perhaps the devil is not practicing it. Devil is just preaching what he knows. You know, so therefore, if you want to hear something, even though they don't practice, if that is good, if that is the right thing, if that is the best teaching, take it and change your life. So therefore, don't try to look at the person who is preaching, whether he has got these values, whether he's Arahant or whether he's a good monk or bad monk. Just try to be humble. That what you can take from it. Otherwise, it's called judgmental mind or critical mind. This will apply even into our family environment also. Sometimes children say, my parents are saying this and that, they don't really do that. You know, that is your limited mind. You don't really see what other person, that's the psychology. You may understand that they are not practicing it, but they might have that qualities. You don't see it. So therefore, this is a bit of a very complex thing. But the final thing I would like to say, take what you can take. And really don't try to criticize other people or try to kind of see them in a more opinion way. That brings a lot of peace for the person. So that is my answer into it. It's a very good question, Sangha.
Thank you, Bante, both Bantes, for that wonderful answers. We cannot say no to this young man who is from our Daham Pasala, and that's Tenuka, who is asking an important question. I would like to know why most of the time we repeat the same Gatha 3 times. From Tenuka, and he's a very active, very thoughtful young man. So I think that's an interesting question.
If you are a school-going boy, you will understand when you do your runs in sports. It's 1, 2, 3. 3 is the number of completion. So in religion, it is the same. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. 3 refuges, not 2. And then if you go to Christianity, God, the Son and the Holy Ghost or Spirit. If you go to Hinduism, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Brahma, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. So in the science of numbers, in numerology, 3 is a very specific number. It's called the number of completion. So if you are a number 3 according to numerology, you become a more complete person, a more professional person, a more educated person, a person who is much more into good organizing. So I hope the questioner will be such a person.
So that's a very good answer. Our children, especially we host this for the young people. and they can take a lot out of our Hamdru. Hamdru says that he is always ahead of his class. He was the first and he was ahead of his time. He read the senior class while he was in the junior class. And is that the reason he has 3 doctorates? So the children can take some example from him to do it thrice best, 3 times best.
Yes, of course, this is a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so glad that we have questions from the whole spectrum of our participants. Now we had Dr. Sena Singh, a professional, and we have other devotees. We have from young people, and then we have from school children and from abroad. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful session. If anyone, yes, there is another message where Sangeeta and sorry, I can't read the people who asked other name. They have a follow-up question. I think you will have to be very, very quick with it, please, as since time is passing. Let me see if Arosha would unmute Sangeeta and Asanga.
හාමුදුරනේ අකුසලයක් කරන්න අපි මොන ක්‍රියාවන්ද සම්පූර්ණ වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒතර කුසලයක් මේ සම්පූර්ණ වෙන්න මොන මේ ක්‍රියාවන්ද කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වගේම සංගීතයට තියෙනවා තව ප්‍රශ්නයක් අහන්න මම සංගීතයට දෙන්න.
හාමුදුරනේ, can I know if there's when we talk about parakarma and in this birth, is there any possibility that we can lessen any parakarma? I know that we don't know how much of parakarma we've done, but is there a possibility to lessen, to reduce parakarma? And or do we have to actually pay, all the parakarma in this birth, no matter what circumstances? Thank you.
I would just like to mention before Hamdru answers that question, the second lady's questions was fully answered and explored by our Bhante Sela Sumana. About 3 weeks ago, we had a full session on karma, but hopefully Hamdru will illuminate it again.
So we did the previous session on karma. That was a good, you can watch it on YouTube as well. And the first one was about what should we do to develop the kusal. Dasa kusal and dasa paramita, all these dasa trinida punya kriya. If you think of doing it for doing sake, not really expecting something in return, that is kusal, which means you are making yourself skillful. Very much like how to make a good driver. When you do more and more and more and more again with discipline. So when you practice dana, when you practice sila, as our young boy asked, why do it 3 times, that it makes you perfect. So that is how what one can develop. Even Buddha made all these 10 perfections to make him skillful, to stand upright for unwholesome things, unskillful things, and to develop the skillful things. So thank you. That's a very good question. I will pass on to our Hamdru about the karma.
Yeah, about the karma of past karmas, of course, certainly, there are certain karmas which vanish by itself, ahosi karma. But there are good karmas when you create bigger, stronger karmas, garuka karma. You are able to reduce the bad karmas to some extent, and nobody can measure that and say how. It depends on how much you are engaged in the good karma that you perform, and in proportion to that good intentions and mode and motive and results, the amount of the bad karma can be reduced, but not totally. If it is a mere simple karma, not a very grave one. If you have done a killing of your mother, father, or shedding blood from an arahant, from the Buddha, killing an arahant as well, or the Buddha if you have shed blood, then those are grave, very grave offenses which you have to pay for. You can't simply get it. The normal, simple karmas all can be reduced. To what extent, nobody knows. Because karma is a field that you simply cannot argue and think and understand. Only when you are practically looking at it and experientially understanding empirically the settings of karma, then you realize. After all this good work will finally come to the kammakaya to get rid of all karmas and go to the non-karma position of enlightenment. Read yourself more and try to get the inquiry from the text. And also follow what you had 3 weeks ago in the discussions with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamdurne, for that. And thank you so much, Sangeeta and Asanga, for asking those wonderful questions. So it has been such a wonderful session here. And this just demonstrates the attraction for our Hamduru's wonderful exposition of the Buddhist values for social development. So, and I think I have mentioned just a couple of things. We want to develop this. I think the idea of young people and everybody engaging in discussion, asking questions, shows that everyone's benefiting from it, thinking about what's being said. So this we want to continue and develop further. And we are hoping that Bhante Sumana Siri would also have the opportunity to come back again and join our sessions sometime in the future. Of course, අපේ මම දැන් සිංහලෙන් කියන්නම් අපිට තව අපේ පූජනීය සීල සුමන හාමුදුරුවෝ වැඩි කාලයක් අපිත් එක්ක ඉන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් මේ මාසේ අන්තිමට වගේ උන්වහන්සේ පිට වෙලා මේ ලංකාවට වඩින්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. තව මාසස් දෙකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අද මේ දෙවනිදා 9 වෙනිදාට පස්සේ තියෙන ඉරිදා දෙකක් තියෙනවා වේකන්ට් වෙලා ඒක ස්පොන්සර් කරන්න කාටවත් හරිම කැමැත්තක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ ගැන අපිට දන්නන්න. එහෙමනම් සීලසුන් ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේට අවසරයි මේ පුණ්‍යයට.
I'd like to add this. Those who ask questions, you made me relieved, because when you didn't want to ask questions in the beginning, I thought all of you are enlightened. So you didn't want to ask questions.
Thank you, Bhante.
ගෞරවනීය හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේලා නමස්කාරයි. පින්තුනි සුදවනි අද ඉතාම වැදගත් ධර්ම සාකච්ඡාවක් වශයෙන් දැන් මේ මාතෘකාවේදී ඉතාම වැදගත් සාකච්ඡාවක් සාකච්ඡා වුණා. විශේෂයෙන් සාර ධර්ම පිළිබඳව තමයි සාකච්ඡා කළේ. විශේෂයෙන් බෞද්ධ සාර ධර්ම පිළිබඳව. සාර ධර්ම කියලා කියන්නේ සාරවත් ධර්ම කියන එකයි. ඒක සිංහල භාෂාවෙන් පුරුෂාර්ථ කියලා කියනවා සාර ධර්ම වලට. ඒ සාර ධර්ම මත තමයි මේ ලෝකේ පවතින්නේ. ඒ සාර ධර්ම මේසාගේ ගුණගරුක භාවයේ පවත්වා ගැනීමට යහපත් පුද්ගලයෙක් බවට පත් වීමට හේතු වෙන ගුණධර්ම රාශියක් තියෙනවා. ඒ බුදුදහමේ මේ සූත්‍ර ධර්ම වල උගන්වලා තියෙන මේ සාර ධර්ම විශේෂයෙන් දෙමාපියන්ට සැලකීම, වැඩිහිටියන්ට කරු කිරීම, ඒ වගේම ගුරුවරුන්ට කීකරු වීම වගේ මේ පංචශීල ප්‍රතිපත්තිය තුලත් ඒ ගුණධර්ම උගන්වලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ආර්යශ්‍රාංග මාර්ගය කියන්නේ සාර ධර්ම ආසියක්. මෙන්න මේ කියන ගුණධර්ම අපේ ජීවිතයට එකතු කරගත්තොත් අපි යහපත් පුරවැසියන් හැටියට මේ සමාජයේ ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙනවා. දුරුදරුවන් හැටියට ඒ ගුණධර්ම දියුණු කරගන්නට අපි උත්සාහ කළ යුතුයි. ඒ වගේම අපේ ඉගෙනීමේදී අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ මේ පැරණි සමාජයේ කිව්ව විද්‍යා දදාති විනයන් කියලා ඉගෙනීමෙන් හික්මීමක් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ හික්මීමක් නැත්නම් මේ ඉගෙනීමෙන් වැඩක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම අපේ බුදුදහමේ කියවෙනවා අපදාන සෝගිනී පඤ්ඤා කියලා. ඒ ප්‍රඥාව බැඳෙන්නේ චරිතයෙන් කියලා. ඉතින් අපේ ජීවිතයේ චරිතයක් නුවණක් කියන දෙකම අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒක සමබරව සමතුලිතව පවත්වා ගන්නට ඕන. ඒ සමබරව ගුණධර්ම පක්ෂයක් අපි දිනු කර ගන්නට ඕනේ. ඒ වගේම නුවණක් දිනු කර ගන්නට ඕනේ. ඒක හරියට කුරුල්ලෙකුගේ ක්‍රියාපද්ධතියට සමාන කියලා කියනවා. කුරුල්ලෙකුට එක ක්‍රියාපතක් තිබිලා ක්‍රියාමන්න දරුවා වගේ අපේ ජීවිතයේ මේ දෙපක්ෂයම දිනු කරගත් තරමට තමයි පරිපූර්ණ පුජ්‍යලේ බවට පත් වෙන්නේ. දැන් පැරණි අධ්‍යාපනයේදී බෞද්ධභාවය කියන කගේ කියලා කියනවා. බෞද්ධභාවය කියලා කියන්නේ බොහෝ ඇසූ පිරුතන් ඇති බව. ඒ බෞද්ධ කියන එකේ විරුද්ධ වචනේ තමයි අල්පසුතභාවය. අල්පසුත කියලා කියන්නේ අඥාන ස්වභාවය නැත්නම් නොදන්නා බව. ඒ නොදන්නා පුද්ගලයා සමාජයේ ගෞරවයට පාත්‍ර වෙන්නේ නැහැ. බෞද්ධ පුද්ගලයා තමයි සමාජයේ ගෞරවයට පාත්‍ර වෙන නිසා බොහෝ දේවල් ඇසූ පිරු තැනැත්තා තමයි සමාජීය පරිපූර්ණත්වයට පත් වෙන පුද්ගලයෙක් බවට පත් වෙන්නේ. අපේ පැරණි අධ්‍යාපනයේ අන්වෙනි බෞද්ධ භාවයක් ලබාගත් පුද්ගලයන් තමයි මේ ගෞරවය හිමිවුනේ. ඒ නිසා අපේ පැරණි අධ්‍යාපන පොතපතේ වගේම බෞද්ධ සාහිත්‍යයේ තියෙන හැම දෙයකින්ම අපට දෙවෙනි පාඩම් ඉගෙන ගන්නට පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන් ජාතක පොත ගත්තොත් ඒ ජාතක පොතේ තියෙන චරිත කතා විශේෂයෙන් බෝසත් චරිත කතාවෙන් අපට ආදර්ශ උපදේශ රාශියක් ගන්නට පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම විහාරස්ථානවල අපි චිත්‍ර නරඹනවා. ඒ චිත්‍ර වලින් දක්වන හොඳ නරක දෙපැත්තම. විශේෂයෙන් අපාය දිව්‍ය ලෝකයේ කියලා දෙපැත්තක් වෙනවා. අපාය තුලින් පවට ගියක් ඇති කිරීමට, ඒ වගේම දිව්‍ය ලෝකයේ නිර්මාණය කිරීම තුළින් පින්දාම් කිරීමට යොමු කිරීමක් අපි කරනවා. ඒක තමයි සාර ධර්ම අධ්‍යාපනයේ විශේෂයෙන් වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම පුරාණයේ ඉඳලා මේ සමාජ සාර ධර්ම ඇදහිීමට ලක් කළා. ඒකට හේතුව අපේ බෞද්ධ පසුබිමක් සමග තමයි මේ ගුණධර්ම වර්ධනයටපත් වෙන්නේ, දියුණුවටපත් වෙන්නේ. අපි මේ කියන යහපත් ගුණධර්ම දෙමාපියන්ට සැලකීම, වැඩිහිටියන්ට ගරු කිරීම, ඒ වගේම ගිලනුන්ට උපස්ථාන කිරීම, අසරණ සරණ සේවාවන්, ඒ වගේම ප්‍රජා සත්කාර සේවාවන් යෙදීම බෞද්ධ සාර ධර්ම ගණයට ගන්න පුළුවන්. අන්නේ බෞද්ධ සාර ධර්ම අගය කරන පිරිසක් ජීවුණොත් තමයි මේ බෞද්ධ පසුබිමක් තුළ මනා ශික්ෂණයක් ලැබුවොත් තමයි අපේ යහපත් පුරවැසියන් හැටියට මේ සමාජයේ ජීවත් වෙන්නට ශක්තිය හැකියාව ලැබෙන්නේ. අද මේ වැදගත් මාතෘකාවයටදී ඉතාම වැදගත් කරුණු රාශියක් සාකච්ඡා වුණා. මේ කරුණු මේ දූ දරුවන් හැටියට අපේ ජීවිතයට එකතු කරගෙන අපි යහපත් දූ දරුවන් හැටියට යහපත් පුරවැසියන් හැටියට සමාජයට යන්නට පරිපූර්ණ අධ්‍යාපනයක් කියලා කියන්නේ මේ විදිහේ ශික්ෂණයකින් යුක්තව ලබන අධ්‍යාපනයක්. එවැනි අධ්‍යාපනයක් ලබා අපි අධිෂ්ඨාන කරගන්නා හැටියට සිහිපත් කරමින් අද මේ පින්කමේ පුණ්‍යානුමෝදනාව සිදු කිරීමටයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. මේ දහම් සිසිල ඒ 18 වෙනි පින්කමේ දායකත්වය ලබාගෙන තියෙන්නේ යාතුල දෙවිපිටේ මහත්මයා වගේ මේ චන්දනෝනා ඇතුළු පවුලේ ඇත්තන් සියලු දෙනාම බලාපොරොත්තු වන පරිදි තමන්ගේ ආදරණීය පුතණුවන්ගේ 15 වෙනි සංදිනයේ සිහිපත් කරන ඒ ලියන් මිලින් දෙවිපිටේ පුතණුවන්ට ආශිර්වාද කිරීමයි ප්‍රධාන අරමුණ. ඊට අතිරේකව ඒ තිහාන් අවිදුවේ දෙවිපිටේ පුතණුවන්ට ආශිර්වාද කිරීමත්, ඒ වගේම අතුල මහත්මයාගේ ආදරණීය මෑණියන්ට ආශිර්වාද කිරීම මේ පින්කමේ ප්‍රධාන අරමුණක් කරගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ බලාපොරොත්තු වන පරිදි මේ දෙවිපිටේ පවුලේ සියලු දෙනාටම විශේෂයෙන් ඒ පුතණුවන්ට වියම් මිලින් දෙවිපිටේ පුතණුවන් ඇතුළු පවුලේ සියලු දෙනාටම ඒ වගේම අද මේ පින්කමේ සහභාගී වුණු අතිසුදුන් සියලු දෙනාටම සියලු ආකාරයෙන් සාන්තිය සැනසෙල්ල සෞභාග්‍ය උදා කරගෙන ඒ දරුවන්ගේ අධ්‍යාපන කටයුතු සර්ව ප්‍රකාරයෙන්ම සාර්ථක කර ගැනීමට සියලු දෙවියන්ගේ රැකවරණයේ ආශිර්වාදය ලැබේවා කියන අදහසින් සියලුම දෙවි දේවතාවුන් වහන්සේලාටත් මේ පින් අනුමෝදන් කරමු. ittavatatyam he sambhatam punya sampadam sabbi devanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya ittavatatyam he sambhatam punya sampadam sabbi devanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya ittavatatyam he sambhatam punya sampadam sabbi devanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya ඒ වගේම පරලෝක ප්‍රාප්තියේ සියලුම ඥාති මිත්‍රාදීන් සිහිපත් කිරීමේදී විශේෂ වශයෙන් පිටින් දීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වන දෙනිපිටිය අතුරු දෙනිපිටිය මහත්මාගේ ආදරණීය ඥාති හිතවතුන්ගේ පවුල්වලේ ආදරණීය පියාණන් ඇතුළු පවුල්වල සියලුම ඥාතීන් ඒ වගේම තමිල් නෝනාගේ පරලෝක ප්‍රාප්තිය ආදරණීය මව්පියවරු ඇතුළු සියලුම ඥාතීන් මේ පින්කමට සහභාගී වූ අතිරික්ත සියලු දෙනාගෙන් පරලෝකපත් සියලුම ඥාතීන් මේ පින් අනුමෝදන් පරලෝකයෙන් සුවපත් යහපත් ජීවිතවලට පත්වෙත්වා කියන අදහසින් සියලුම පරලෝකීය ඥාතීන්ට මේ පින් අනුමෝදන් කරමු. ඉදම්මේ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු නාතයෝ ඉදම්මේ ඥාතීනං හෝතු sukhitaa hontu nātayō idammē ඥාතීනං හෝතු sukhitaa hontu nātayō ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිපානපත්තියා ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤං ආසවක්ඛයාවහං හෝතු සබ්බ දුක්ඛා පමුඤ්චතු අවසාන වශයෙන් මේ රැස් කර ගන්න තේරුම් සකල විදුක්ඛාන සංසය ඒ විශේෂයෙන් ඒ පන්දිනේ සීකත් කරන ගියම් නිමෙන් දෙවිපිටිය පුතනවන්න නැතුළු ඒ දෙවිපිටිය පවුලේ සියලු දෙනාටම මේ පින්කමට අද සහභාගී වන සියලු දෙනාටම සියලු ආකාරයෙන් සෞභාග්‍ය සන්තුෂ්ටිය ළඟා කරගෙන අනාගත ජීවිතයේ සර්වපකාරයෙන් සාර්ථක කර ගැනීමට සියලු දෙවියන්ගේ රැකවරණය ආශිර්වාද ලැබේවා. පරලෝක වශයෙන් මේ පරලෝක ප්‍රාප්ත සියලු ඥාති මිත්‍රාදීන් සුවපත් යහපත් ජීවිතවලට පත්වෙත්වා. පරලෝකපත් ඥාතීන් තුන හැම දිනාටම සියලු දුක් නිවාරණය නිර්වාණ සම්පත්තිය අවබෝධ කර ගැනීමට හේතු වාසනා වේවා කියන අවුස්සාදු කියන
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sabbi vajjanti sabda yogo vinassatu bhati bhavatantarayo sukhi dīghāyiko bhavatu sabda mangalam rakkantu sabda devata sabda buddhāyeka sada sukhi bhavantu te bhavatu sabda mangalam rakkantu sabda devata sabda dhammānuභāvena sada sukhi bhavantu te bhavatu sabda mangalam rakkantu sabda devata sabda saṅghānuභāvena sada sukhi bhavantu te abhivādana sīlissa niccang vaddāpacāyino tattārō dhammā vajjanti āyuvanno sukham balam āyurārogya sampatti sagga sampatti devata ato nibbāna sampatti vināte samicchatu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, thank you very much, everybody. We have just to say as a very special thank you to Dr. Bhante, Dr. Siri, Sumana Siri, Hamdro, and especially for attending our Daham Sisila program and gracing this occasion. Anit Swamin Hansala Tidanatama ape kෘතඥ පූර්වක නමස්කාරය ඔබ වහන්සේලාට මේවා ඉදිරියට කරන්න චිරජීවනය ලැබේවා නිරෝගී චිරජීවනයක් ලැබේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා. සාදු සාදු සාදු. එහෙනම් කවුරුත් ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේලා වදින ගාථාව කියමු. ඕකාස වන්දාමි භන්තේ මයා කතම් පුඤ්ඤං සාමිනා අනුමෝදිතබ්බං සාමිනා කතං පුඤ්ඤං මයිහං දාතබ්බං ඕකාස ద్వාරත්තේන කතං සබ්බං අච්චයං කමතමේ භන්තේ ඕකාස කමාමි භන්තේ ဒ ුතියම්පි ඕකාස කමාමි භන්තේ තතියම්පි ඕකාස කමාමි භන්තේ සාදු සාදු. අපි දැන් සංඝයා වඳින ගාථාව එකට කියමු. පොඩි ප්‍රමාද දෝෂයක් තියෙනවා ඒකට. සාදු සාදු. හොඳයි එහෙනම් එන සුමානෙත් මේ සුපුරුදු වෙලාවන්ට අපි කවුරුත් හම් වෙනකන් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම සම්මා සම්බුදු සරණයි.